India is a nation in turmoil after years of imperialism and a power vacuum following the British withdrawal. In the north, the Indian Republic was declared, but it is still a new and fragile democracy. After disputes with Bengali regionalists, they have declared independence, driving a republic into greater division. And in the south, an even greater threat has formed. Radical Hindu nationalists are leading a revolt against us, and clouding it all is the great Indian famine. Bread prices are sky high and a large portion of the population can't feed themselves. With the 1952 election coming up, one can only wonder what will happen next. But the current government has decided to show no mercy to both the Bengalis and the Hindu nationalists. Our army is terribly undersupplied, but this won't stop us. We have 5 light tank divisions that hopefully will shred through the militia-based uprisings. And that they did. We encircled the part of the Bengali army that was close to split our nation in two. Just then the Bengali government asked for a truce. Never, we will end this uprising through the end of our rifles. With the encircled divisions captured, we continued with our tanks. We were careful not to attack over a river and drove all the way to Calcutta. The Bengali militias weren't prepared and we entered the city, also encircling some of their divisions. Dhaka is now their only big city left. Since they are also low on guns, we could attack with our infantry. They held out for dear life, but our numerical superiority quickly overcame any defensive attempts. With the city captured, the Bengali rebellion is crushed. But the southern rebellion have begun to slowly push us north. Our Bengali veterans have no time to rest. We need to crush the Hindu nationalists. While we had been fighting in Bengali, the government had started investing in our civilian industry. But sadly, this won't help much against the famine. Back to the rebellion. Our veterans and light tank divisions have arrived to the front. Once again, we were careful not to cross any rivers, and our tanks quickly advanced along the plains. We arrived to the Arabian Sea and captured Bombay. We had encircled a massive amount of nationalist divisions and crushed them in a few weeks. Probably more than half of their army was in that encirclement, so we can now cut deep into their territory. Since we almost met no resistance, we dared to cross rivers with our tanks. Soon we arrived to the other side of the Indian peninsula, to the Bay of Bengal. Just as we were about to enter Madras, the elections were held. The current government, the Socialist Democrats, were expecting a comfortable majority since they had dealt with the Bengalis and were about to crush the nationalists. But due to the failure of the government to do something about the Great Famine, people have turned more radical, and in an unexpected turn of events, the communists have gained a slight majority. They will immediately set to work on creating a Red India with enough food for everyone. But first we have to finish the Hindu nationalists. And it wasn't difficult, we simply marched into their new capital Madras and captured their leaders to put them on trial later. The nationalists are crushed and we have reclaimed parts of the south. So with peace on the peninsula we can finally start to do something about the famine. The government has decided to follow the Soviet model despite its flaws and our differences. But we won't follow it exactly. It will be more as a blueprint to be studied and improved. For us to fix the food crisis, we need to improve our agriculture. To free it from the British and capitalist monopoly, we will establish collective councils of agriculture. But only reorganizing our farms will not be enough. We need to help the farmers with mechanical methods. So we will open several tractor factories, just like the Soviets did. We have turned our industry into an industry for the needs of the people and the workers. The famine is gone and our industry is slowly growing. We will put more attention to trade and the market to protect ourselves from outside influence. The less we import and the more we produce ourselves, the better. Because of this we will impose harsh import taxes. With our economy now rapidly improving, it is only a question of time until we surpass Italy in GDP. So we can now put the fascists and the nationalists on trial for their crimes against the Republic. With them out of the way, we can establish the Union of Indian Soviet Republics. Our peninsula has several cultures and people. It is only right that we unite ourselves through a federal republic. But we will still create a new culture without any remnants of the old imperial times. At last, the great Indian workers' cultural revolution has begun. We will encourage syndicates all throughout India to put our industry in the hands of the workers. For our cultural revolution to be successful, we have to get rid of Hinduism and replace it with socialism. It will take a long time, but through better education and indoctrination, our future generations will have forgot Hinduism. With the government's power secured through cultural and industrial revolutions, we can begin to spread the revolution to other lands. In the south, the kings of Mysore and Hyderabad are enslaving their population just like the British did to us. But we will liberate them and deal with the imperialist kings. The Hyderabad kingdom was already completely encircled by us and their army didn't have enough men to defend our border. We marched into Hyderabad and the only defenders we met were the royal guard. They fought bravely, but this isn't enough to stop our army. The Mysore kingdom was a bit trickier since their king managed to flee Bangalore when we entered the city. But our rapid tanks managed to outmaneuver and encircle his guard, and soon they had also surrendered. A great problem standing in the way of successfully uniting our people is that we are far too isolated. There are only two railways connecting the south and the north together. With our new industrial workforce, we will improve infrastructure and build new railroads all across India. The war with the kingdoms went great, but a few of our soldiers left their post during it. This can't be happening if we are fighting a difficult war. We need to learn our soldiers the importance of protecting the Indian Revolution. We must also learn from the Great Patriotic War that crushed the Soviets so that we don't make the same mistakes as they did. So, with our army improved, we can continue to spread our revolution. The Pakistani people are chained by capitalism and the clergy. We must help the Pakistani proletariat. We will start to fund the Communist Party of Pakistan. It will take time for them to get popular, so in the meantime we sent an ultimatum to Jammu and Kashmir. They didn't budge and we declared war. The mountainous terrain didn't stop us. We encircled most of their divisions and captured their capital city in only a few weeks. We annexed both Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, but once the proletariat of Pakistan have taken power, we will give away the latter to them. We can now begin supplying arms to the communist militias in Pakistan. While waiting even more, we created an ideal worker that our people will strive for. Additionally, we are modernizing our military by equipping our infantry soldiers with advanced artillery and upgrading our outdated light tanks to main battle tanks. But this will probably take several months. Then we received the surprising announcement from the British. They have finally officially recognized our government. A few months later, our support to the communists in Pakistan have shown massive success. Their popularity is now 53% and we can finally launch the revolt. After a week of strikes, the government has given up and the communists have taken power. We have succeeded. The workers of Pakistan are free. We immediately invited their government to an Asian Comintern and gave away Gilgit-Baltistan to the Pakistanis. The goal of the Asian Comintern is to unite communist and socialist nations in Asia together against imperialists, mainly China. After the fall of Japan, the Kuomintang and the CCP fought a violent civil war. Without any outside help, the CCP ultimately fell to the dictatorship of Chiang Kai-shek. Since then, the dictatorship has enslaved its population and attacked our friends in Vietnam. But through excellent guerrilla warfare, the Viet Cong kicked out the KMT soldiers. So we will prepare a coup in Burma to put the communists in power. It went perfectly. We now have a border with the communists in Laos and we will invite them and Vietnam to the Asian Comintern too. They gladly joined and we will immediately start to learn from Ho Chi Minh. Meanwhile in Africa the Portuguese colonial empire has started to crumble. They have lost Angola to the Marxist-Leninist liberation movement. This means we can finally dare to retake Goa. We will start a border conflict and drive them out with our new tanks. The Portuguese weren't ready for this and we easily raised our flag on the main buildings of Goa. Just after this, the British government must have been scared and approached us with a deal to give away Ceylon to us in return for us joining the Commonwealth of Nations. Of course, we don't want to join it, but for the best of the Sri Lankan people, we will accept the deal. We are now ready to bring the fight to Tibet. They have been a puppet regime of China for a long time now. Our plan is to create a Himalayan republic, but freeing the Tibetan people will put us at war with the Chinese. So it's time to plan the biggest invasion plan of China since the Sino-Japanese War. The Chinese have more divisions than us, but we have allies. But we have one problem, our supply. In Kashmir, our divisions are having massive supply issues, so we will begin to build a supply depot in the region. The 10th of May we were ready. Without any official declaration, we marched into Tibet. The Chinese immediately declared war on us to supposedly save Tibet from us. The Sino-Indian War has begun. We stopped advancing into Tibet since if we went too far the defenders would easily be able to push us back. Instead, we will get our revenge on southern China for attacking Vietnam. With support from our allies on the flanks, we broke the Chinese defenses and marched into Yunnan. Our tanks helped a lot and soon we arrived in the regional capital of Kunming. The state of Dali is now vulnerable to an encirclement and we will take the chance. Despite the unfavorable terrain, our infantry from both sides of the encirclement pushed the Chinese units back and met each other in the middle. The Vietnamese have already started to push along the coastline. We will help them. Our tanks slashed through the KMT units and we captured Nanning. Once the Vietnamese continued to the Hainan Island, we received a desperate message from the Chinese. They were ready to give away all of Tibet for peace. Many of our diplomats thought this was a great deal, but we won't accept it. We will free the workers of China. So we continued our offensive. After a long fight to try and cross to the island of Hainan and several calls of reinforcements, we successfully crossed it and destroyed the resistance. Now the more difficult part of our invasion will take place. We are arriving to the Chinese lands with almost no supply hubs. Our plan is to mobilize our workforce in numbers to both develop the Chinese countryside and build better infrastructure to support our invasion. So we slowly creeped forwards toward Chongqing. Surprisingly, we met little to no resistance and entered the city almost uncontested. We will now have to stop and build our first supply hub. While we waited for our workers to finish, we continued along the coast. This is the only place where we won't have to build supply hubs since the Chinese ports will do just fine. Our tanks once again cut through the defenses and we had soon captured Guangzhou. Our border with China is starting to get big, so we will train some more units. We have created the Himalayan Puppet Republic. But for us to spread communism throughout Tibet, we have to liberate all of it. So while we train divisions for the main front, we will do it. With the help of our Pakistani allies, we have rushed towards Lhasa. After also beginning to attack from the south of Lhasa, we captured the important city and encircled a few Chinese divisions in the process. With the Tibetan capital liberated and our puppet regime in place, we can begin to make it self-reliant. We kicked out both Monarch and KMT agents, instead bringing in the Himalayan commissioners. To protect the revolution, we also organized the Red Himalayan Army. With Tibet secured and our newly trained units arriving to China, we continued our offensives. We encircled several Chinese divisions while we marched along the countryside, but as always we had to stop to build a supply hub, so while we wait we will continue along the coast. Maybe we have gone a bit too far. We have to make the front shorter by trying to capture Shangde and Changsha. We have liberated all of southern China and the Kuomintang are beginning to run out of weapons. To make everything even better, we are arriving to the more well-developed parts of China. Nanjing is only a few kilometers away and after that we will almost be able to take a train ride up to Beijing. Our infantry, supported by our tank divisions, marched along the coast and captured Ningbo and Shanghai. After that we turned west and entered Nanjing, the Chinese capital. The Chinese are now halfway to capitulate, but we are more than halfway in defeating them. The following weeks, the same thing happened over and over again. We broke through their defenses, took a pause and broke through again. Soon we had crossed the Yellow River and captured Beijing. The Chinese were so unprepared for this event that we could snake into Manchuria and capture their third capital. With the whole Chinese coastline captured, a single last big offensive will break them. Even though our divisions might have been outmanned, they weren't outgunned. After breaking through and capturing only a few cities, the Kuomintang collapsed. Communist rebellions broke out throughout the countryside and even in a few cities. A week later, the Kuomintang surrendered and the Sino-Indian War is over. For the first time, communism is all over China. We have established the People's Republic of China. It will take many years to bring them to the same development as we have at home. But investment into its industry will strengthen the economic power of the Asian Comintern. Our army is now tired after the long war, but we aren't quite done yet. We have to liberate the mountain kingdoms and integrate them into the Himalayan Republic. We declared war and both the kingdom of Sikkim and the kingdom of Bhutan fell quickly. Nepal was a bit trickier, but by attacking from west to east with a ton of air support we encircled their capital. Then we simply entered the city and the Himalayan mountains was ours. The Asian Comintern are now the leaders of Asia. We are stretching from Sri Lanka to Manchuria. But we are almost the only communist nations in the world. Both the Germans and the Americans are against us. We even have a border with the American faction in Iran where the British invaded the country. We need to protect ourselves against them. And what better way than to join Asia's brightest mind to kickstart nuclear research and build the first Asian nuclear weapon. Thanks so much for watching everyone and see you in the next video.